The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
So Tom's our third straight guest from Atlanta. I don't know what's going on here, but Atlanta has been in the house. And Tom apparently, he plays tennis. So and gave us an injury story about someone, a friend of his, who played the paddleball and just tore an Achilles. So word of warning, I guess, for Atlanta. That the paddleball is fierce there. And the
pickleball.
Pickleball. Sorry, the pickleball. Yeah, sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on. Why do we have so many Atlanta guests right now? I love it. I love Atlanta. So let's get to it. Welcome back to the Bliss Business Podcast, the show where we explore how empathy, connection, and purpose transform business from the inside out. I'm Steven, joined as always by Mike. And I'll give you a little stat here. A recent Harvard business study found that employees who feel a strong sense of belonging are 56% more productive and 50% less likely to leave. So today's episode is all about what it really means to build connection in community, not just in our teams, but the people we serve. Mike, introduce our guest today.
Oof, I love that, Stephen. Can't wait to talk about this. So we are super excited to have Tom Wood with us today. Tom's the president and the CEO of Floor Coverings International. And with over 30 years of experience in building high-performing franchise networks, Tom's been at the forefront, really, of turning a transactional type of service into what we really love, one that is deeply human and a deep human experience, which is incredible that you can do that, Tom. You know, at the heart of Tom's leadership is a belief that business success begins really with connection, with customers, with franchisees, and team members alike. And from driving growth in the flooring industry to building a culture of mutual support and trust, which are all key to that. So Tom's created an ecosystem where people really thrive. We can't wait to hear more about it. Welcome to our show.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here. I'm really looking forward to this, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, great having you on here, Tom. So you've led Floor Coverings International through some enormous growth. How many franchise locations are we talking now?
We have just over 300 franchise locations. We'll finish the year probably with 325 up and operating.
Wow. So yeah, what really stands out is, so you got this big operation, but you've really kind of made sure you've fostered a sense of personal connection in what, like Mike mentioned, this could be a purely transactional industry if you wanted it to be.
That's right.
But can you take us back? What shaped maybe the approach to customer relationships here and your leadership in general in that regard?
Well, if it's okay, I'll go right to the vision and values that we have for the organization. I know you can't read it behind me, but I've got it on that poster there, and it's there strategically so that every single web conversation that we have with somebody, regardless of the content, regardless of the purpose, is there that we can reference. But the fifth core value that we have, the one that's on the very bottom of that poster, is engage in the community and make it fun. That actually is our fifth core value. Now, that core value, that very specific core value, I would say, is at the heart and is the meat, really, that holds our organization together, helps us have a uniform, aligned, connected purpose. But also it's that piece that helps us understand when maybe things aren't going well, where's that wobbly wheel on the team, if you will, or that wobbly element that is causing friction. And I'll just define for you what engage in the community and makes it fun, and make it fun means to us. Work is work. Companies have to make profit. We're tasked to grow. There's all the same business elements here at Floor Coverings International that every other successful organization would have. But what we have really come to believe that makes this fun, if you will, is the people that you work with. It's being able to rely on them. It's being able to trust them and to enjoy one another in our commonalities and in our differences, that really become the fabric of Floor Coverings International. And that fifth core value, engage in the community, is a very specific term of you have a role and responsibility if you're on the team to plug in with your peers, to plug in with the people around you, to plug in to the community and connect with them, and find a way to make it enjoyable for you and for them. That's that piece of, we're all different. We all have things that we like to do, and other people have things that they like to do. Each and every one of us carry a responsibility to plug in with our peers and find a way to do it that you have a smile on your face, which can mean a lot of different things.
When you're bringing up a new franchise, how do you identify leaders that kind of, vibe with all this? Are you specifically, is that something you're looking for, or is it something you're training specifically?
Yeah, most certainly. Anytime I'm speaking with potential new franchisees, and again, that's one of the reasons that it's on the board behind me, because I'll reference it and we'll walk through each one of the core values. And when I get to that last core value, and the reason that it's the last core value is because that's the one that we want to linger on, that we know is different here in the organization. Just last week, I was interviewing somebody for a role on our team. I'm kind of the gatekeeper, if you will, around culture. So I was the last person to interview this person. And really what I'm discussing with them is what it means to be part of the community and the responsibility that this potential new person coming onto our team has. It's the same with the new franchise owners when we're speaking with them about joining the organization. What does it really mean to be part of the community, and what is your responsibility of engaging with others? Now, people that are extroverts, it's easy for them to envision what it means to go and engage. However, it doesn't mean that it's easy for them to figure out how to connect and make it fun for all people that are involved. Introverts, oftentimes we find, are a little more adept at finding the way to make the connection, but are a little less likely to go and actually engage, easily and openly. So those conversations at the selection stage or allowing somebody into the organization are important. But once we're actually working together, whether it's franchisor or franchisee, or it's somebody on our corporate team, it's that little last piece that we can remind somebody when they're engaged, when they're plugging into the organization, of how they can integrate more deeply, which gives the job more meaning, essentially, and allows everybody to collaborate more easily and work together, and we get great things done. It's fun.
Which is on the core value, as we know.
It sure is. Yeah, it sure is.
That is just so great. We're like 7 minutes into this podcast, and I'm already thinking, man, this is such a rich conversation already. So thank you, Tom. And it's so funny, right? Because in the business world where we're at today, we see what's happening on the news. Everything, it seems like it's pulling people apart, and yet, love the fact that you're using words like community and integrate. So, definitely applaud you for that. I'm actually kind of curious about, something. So in this industry that you're in, perhaps the expectation of customers is that, maybe they're going to get some kind of a commodity service. They're maybe just, price shopping, right? Because you can get the products in a lot of different places. So and yet you've been able to sort of transform that by injecting, care and some customization to it. Can you just give us a little bit of a sense of what some of those things are that you've injected that demonstrate that care and customization?
Definitely. If you don't mind, can I start from the whole organization and how it zeroes down to then delivering in the field for our customers? Would that be okay?
That would be wonderful.
Yes, excellent.
All right. When I was a young man in this industry, gosh, I'm going back 30 years. I remember sitting in a workshop in the franchising industry, and there was an older person there that was leading the workshop. But the thing that stuck out that he said was, listen, your franchise owners, oftentimes the only real vacation that they take away from their business is your annual convention. Annual conventions are a requirement of a franchisor. And what he said next was really the influential piece. He said, if you know as the franchisor that this is going to be their only vacation, their only time with their family away from their business, in reality, You have a responsibility as the franchisor to take that piece of information and turn your annual convention into an experience for them. And the ones that really get it right are the ones that turn it into an experience for their family that may not actually be involved in the day-to-day business. Mm-hmm. And it was from that point forward that we took it as a mandate, and I took it as a personal mandate, to ensure that the annual convention that we have for our franchise owners is in a location that they would like to come, and that they would like to bring their families, their spouses, their children, and sometimes these spouses of their adult children and things like that. So I'll give an example. We do our annual convention each year at a resort on the beach in Mexico. Generally, we'll go from Cancun to Puerto Vallarta to Cabo or something like that. And it's in a facility that allows us to have the business meeting so that we can get the work done. That's really important. But it also provides a location and an environment for the families to be there to plug into the convention if and when they want, but also to be able to enjoy themselves, while the convention is going on. Now, what this does for us is not only do we have a very, very high participation at our convention, and everybody is hanging around one another, and they're collaborating and they're sharing, and the families get to know one another, which gives them a deeper meaning for the business that they're running. But it also sets a foundation for them of how they should be plugging in with their own employees back maybe when they're in their local community, in their office, and how they should be involving their families. Now, the question that you asked me is, how do we bring this differentiator when we're working with our customers in the community?
Yeah.
Well, here's the really awesome outcome that I know traces back to the overall organizational philosophy of engage in the community. Our franchise owners connect with each and every customer and see their local environment where they have their territory, if you will, as their local community. We have the highest net promoter score in all of flooring, which is a $100 billion plus industry. Mm-hmm. And it comes down to, and if you read the comments in our net promoter and our Google search, our Google reviews and things like that, the owners connecting with the customer in the beginning and at the end, and humanizing, let's face it, is construction in a customer's home while they're living there. But making it an experience that the customer loves and enjoys and feels a connection with that franchise owner. And what we know for sure is it's an overall reflection of how the organization feels around one another. And we try to treat everybody that way, engage in the community, make it fun, have connections, collaborate with one another, and understand you have value, they have value, we're stronger together. And it's a really, really cool thing.
I love that. It just reminds me, there's this study by Deloitte that says companies with strong connection-driven cultures are 4 times more likely to outperform their peers. And you're talking about like this highest net promoter score. There's reasons for this. And I want to get into, like, if there are any systems or processes or methodologies that you build that help keep that human connection at the center of your operations. Because I think, that connection that you're talking about, they go and they build that. What are you guys trying to do in those moments?
Yeah, I wouldn't, if I'm being transparent, I wouldn't say that I actually have figured out how to take this feeling piece of connecting and put it into an exact science process. But I will say it's an intuitive thing to know when it's just not working. And like I said, when the tuning fork is just not quite in tune, or the wheel on the bus is a little wobbly. And we have a philosophy, or a saying, if you will, when things are going well, make sure you throw a party. When things are not going well, you throw twice the party. That's the mental aspect of it. And what that means is when things are going well, make sure you have people coming together and you're celebrating and you're reinvesting back into people just because, not necessarily a training thing. And I'll give you an example or two. But when things are not going well, we've had some challenging economy the last couple of years, for example. We had COVID, essentially. There's been a lot that's been tumultuous that just make running a business stressful and challenging. What that means to us is get out in the field more. Right now, we've got 3 of our franchise communities, we call them co-ops, that are meeting this week with large groups of our corporate team. There's some training. there's some getting together and really just talking and hanging out and rebuilding those connections to know what the work is that has to be done, coming out of it. It's a really important piece to make sure that those connections stay there. And you have to be deliberate, on it as well.
Yeah, I love that.
Sure.
You kind of mentioned that COVID period. So you guys don't have like the showroom. You're showing up at houses with how you do business. Well, how disruptive was this for you, and how did you guys kind of handle that period?
Well, again, to be direct, our franchise owners, when I go back to April of 2020, well, the world was very, very fearful. The thing that we know now in hindsight was that while homeowners, and communities were staying home, most of us were still very gainfully employed. We're doing fine, essentially, meaning from am I going to lose my house? Can I feed my family? Like those didn't really become, for most of, I'm going to call it North America, real concerns outside the immediate fear. But at the same time, simultaneously, there was a home improvement boom that started. Yeah. So while we're mentoring people, be safe, and watching the reports and things like that, quietly, our franchise owners are going to people's homes because they're calling us, asking us to come and replace their floors. We caught that trend very, very early, and immediately, and I mean it was May 4th, had a plan for all of our franchise owners to get back engaged fully in running their businesses safely and smartly. And it allowed us to get out in front of the world, essentially, if you will, of home improvement, and be able to thrive. And gosh, that was a big boom for us. But we did it as a community. We did it in a collaborative methodology with our franchise owners. We allowed it to be comfortable and safe for them to say, our customers are calling us. I need to have a livelihood. We're going, to their homes. And we did it together.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was imagining, I remember the boom of like the home improvement stuff. Everyone's home at that time and they're just staring at stuff, 24/7. And I go, you guys probably did pretty well, but I imagine though it was like, okay, how do we figure this out so that it's safe for everyone?
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone sort of benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tom, I have to say, I love stories. I'm sure we all, love stories because we learn from them. So I was thinking about maybe if we took a step back, to when you were talking a little bit about bringing that sense of community and that connection, down to, the local, territory. Is there a moment or maybe an example when connection with a customer or even maybe like an employee, maybe connecting with them and it sort of completely changed perhaps the trajectory of or changed the outcome?
Yeah, there's several of them. You're asking that question, and I immediately in my head I'm rolling through. Well, there was this. So I have a daughter that's in consulting right now. She's young. She's 23 years old. As a parent now, when you have adult children, you move into a little bit of a quiet mentoring phase. You can't tell your children anything. But we spend some time talking about, office culture in a big company like that and an office culture, that we have here. And she has a lot of questions about how do you build that culture. And we talk about some things that she experiences and some things that we experience. And there's an example that she really wanted to zero in on that had me thinking. Not long ago, one of our team members here on the corporate team said, hey, I'm a bit of a chef, if you will. It's a passion. I'd like to be able to do lunch here, for the office, can I do that? And I remember responding, well, not only can you, that's awesome. And I wish I felt more comfortable actually coming earlier. And now I'm internalizing, like, why didn't you ask me this before? But the cool thing is I said, hey, what do you need for equipment to make this easy? And they said, well, I'll just make it at home and we'll bring it in. And I was like, well, no, like, what do you need here for equipment? And then probably some other people are going to want to get involved and be your sous chefs. And that started a trend here that we literally have very close to a full commercial kitchen, here at the office.
Oh, wow.
We have massive smokers. We've got some equipment for low country boil and things like that, because we found one of the fun things that people like to do is come in and be able to show off their talents, in the kitchen. And we've got this little thing of, if you'll cook for the office, I'll buy the equipment. We'll buy whatever food you want to, slave over and make. But the thing that my daughter really zeroed in on is she walked through our office not long ago and she said, "Why do you have 3 different espresso machines, here at the office? They're strategically staged around." And I said, "Well, one of the people came and said, 'Hey, can we get a new espresso machine?' And I said, 'Sure.' And they said, 'What do you want?' And it was a $1,000 espresso machine.
Oh boy.
Is it important to you?" And they said, "Well, I think, I'd like it here at the office more. I know that people over on this other side would." And we said, "Hey, we'll get the espresso machine, but you have to teach anybody at the office that wants to learn to use it, how to use it. That'll be the deal."
Yeah.
And then it started a whole nother trend where now people are, they have their things that they like to do and they have this commitment. I'll teach whoever wants, give me enough notice to hop out of a meeting. But where this then spirals is when our franchise owners are here essentially for their training, because they're here fairly often. They see it. Often our team will say, "Hey, I want to cook when this 50-person, franchise, training class comes."
Yeah.
And then the franchisees leave and they're emulating it in their community, with their and things like that. We have what we call a food porn group me, where people are sending pictures of all the food that they're cooking at their office that day, and there are people gathering. And then that trickles down to our customers in the field as well, where they're sharing with their customers, "Hey, this is what we did today," and such. And it's a really fun, again, and collaborative culture. It's fun.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it creates great, atmosphere. It's funny. I was sort of reflecting, Tom, as you're answering that. There's 2 things that have really stood out in my career, is that oftentimes whenever there's a problem, communication is the key, right? It's just talking. Yes. And then the other one that I've found is when there is some kind of lack of connection, or you need to build a relationship, is do it over food and break bread with people. Yeah. So it's great thing, and especially, right, if you enjoyed baking or cooking and preparing things for others and giving that to them, it's a great opportunity to. Wow, what a great example! Thank you for sharing that.
I know there's all the good ideas. Cause like earlier this year, I like one of the things, I don't know, beginning of the year, let's make a goal of having more fun as one of our goals. And so, yeah, I think you've mentioned fun maybe 5 or 6 times, and we're halfway through the show here, but I think it really is important as far as building that connection with everyone. And
the really interesting, sticky part of all of this is, yes, we are a growing company. We have a mandate. We want to always outgrow the industry, minimum 3 times, 5 times is the target every year. So if the industry grows 3%, we want to grow 15%. Essentially. So we have very, very high standards. I think if you were to interview any of the folks here on the team or our franchise owners, what they would say is, "Oh yeah, the fun part, the connection part really is there. It really does happen." But we also have a performance culture as well. Now, as the leader, what I find is, if you have people that are collaborating, they're enjoying what they do, they have smiles, when there's those moments as the leader that you've got to really put the hammer down, essentially, because marketplace is hard, or we made mistakes. You can really challenge your people to go that extra mile, and they will go that extra mile without hesitating if they truly are connected where they work and like the people that they're doing it with.
All right, we've got an audience question here. Let's go to that. Is there a leader you admire for how they build community inside or outside of business?
Great question.
Oh, there's several people. Certainly one of the people that comes to mind is a person I've worked with for 40 years, Charlie Chase, that oftentimes has been that role model of connecting with people and making sure that you're asking the right questions and that you understand what's really important to them. There's another one that I talk to on a very regular basis. Her name is Catherine Monson. She's the CEO over at Propel Brands, that always role models that connectivity with their people and understanding, who they are and where they're at that time and that place, essentially. Those are very quickly come top of mind to people that I want to make sure that I'm always around watching and seeing them role model and things like that. So absolutely. And I could go on and on and on. Yeah.
Mike, should we dive into purpose?
Yeah, we definitely can. I think this segment will probably yield a lot of great insights from Tom, So Tom, we do, as we talked, before the show, we feel very strongly about, leading with purpose, right? Your why did you exist? And in the past, we've done a lot of analysis of sometimes when companies go sideways, we notice that, they sort of digressed from their purpose. And so, we also find that in the statistics, it exists, right? That companies, not that are just like a nonprofit or a company that is intended, for a specific purpose, like a, eco-friendly, perhaps organization, but really companies, when they put their purpose ahead, experience growth that's 30% higher, and their innovation rates are better. They have better, retention as well. So that's a big, part of why we like to also talk about purpose. So my question for you is, what does having a really well-defined purpose, what role does it play in, say, perhaps the success of the business, or perhaps your success?
Michael, it's huge. Gosh, I'm getting up there in years. I'm almost 60 years old, essentially. And I oftentimes say, I wish I learned at 40 or 30 when it took me till 50 and 60 to learn. Yeah. But one of those things is, if you have a very clear vision statement that is a real live statement, or you could reframe that and say your purpose, that is the piece that is enduring. But as a leader, you have to always remind the people around you that this is why we do what we do, and it is the leading edge. And that, again, is on that card behind me. The vision that we have, or the purpose that we have here at Floor Coverings International, is two very simple things. Number one, we will be the highest rated flooring company in all North America for customer experience, which means regardless of whether we're making money or not, our customers will say we gave them the best experience of anybody in the flooring industry, and we are the highest rated flooring experience. Then there's the second part. And when I'm articulating this, I say this is the part that is our internal facing, aspect of our purpose or our vision statement. And that is, we want large, profitable franchise owners. And then we break that right down and say profitable franchise owners means three things. And again, this is that why. Number one, they're making an annual cash flow and return that meets their needs, meets their objectives, meets the reason that they came here. Number two, that they have a team that is large enough, or they've scaled their organization, that they get a quality of life that can only be returned, in my experience, from owning your own business and leading it well. And then that third piece of a profitable and large business is that they got a great equity return based on the business that they ran whenever their last day is in business. Now, our entire team and our franchise network knows this is why we do what we do. Highest rated flooring company in all of North America, and large and profitable franchises. And we empower them and we remind them, if there is ever a time that we ask you to do something, we send out a memo, we have a webinar, we're having a meeting, anything that you can't directly see where that is connected to one or both aspects of our vision statement, you got to throw the timeout flag and say, hold on a second, have we lost our way? And I mean, literally anything that we are doing, it should connect back to one or both parts of that vision statement.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And when you've got franchise model, especially too, with having that purpose just being the guide rails out there always for you. We've got another audience question. Let's go to that. Let's see, we've got LinkedIn user here says, Tom, how do you think connection in business will change in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh gosh, that's an awesome one. And it's one that I do think about a lot. So let me first, if you don't mind, go backwards 5 years, and then I'm going to tell you how that influences for us the forward 5 to 10 years. So 5 years ago, during the coronavirus, there was this massive move towards work remotely. And very early on, we lost our connectivity. And when we lost our connectivity, we lost our purpose and our why we work together. We saw that and reversed it immediately. And when we reversed that immediately, and I'm talking middle of May 2020, we said, we're not going to do this. Now, everybody has an office. It was a safe environment, but we just knew if we're walking the same hallways, we have that opportunity to talk and so on, the connectivity would stay. But then moving into, let's call it 2022, companies were still working remotely. And there was a bit of a nudge here on some of the corporate team, well, other people are working remotely. We want to be able to work remotely. But we knew if we lose our connectivity, essentially, we're going to lose that why. Mm-hmm. We tried it a little bit, again, as a leader, listen to your people and such, but it was obvious very quickly. It was not a popular thing for us to do. However, the connectivity strengthened, by us being back together, and we have dramatically outperformed the industry. Now, about the 5 and 10 years in the future, there are more and more ways for people to be able to do their work virtually and not have to be connected and such. I truly believe that one of the greatest leadership challenges that people have, whether you have a small organization or a large organization, is to be intentional about that connectivity. I know and understand that as a CEO, I have not figured out how to master connectivity with people that are virtual. So here in the short term, we just say, I don't have the skill. We need to be, in person, a bit more often, even our people that are remote, meaning that work at distance and things like that. So we are intentional. But the point on this is, I do believe in the 5 to 10 years, leaders will have to work harder to make sure that they keep that connectivity. They're going to have to be deliberate, and it's going to have to be a very effective plan.
Yeah. It's doing the remote thing is very tough in that particular area, is that connectivity. And we kind of, went back to sort of the hybrid model ourselves, but it's like, I know what we're missing is like that, hearing over people's shoulders, or, that even those little like water break conversation, things like that, where, how do you replicate that remotely? It's just really, we try, but I don't know who's mastered it yet at all.
There's just a lot of innovation that takes place when we're connected. And I love Tom, that you put the onus kind of on leaders. Now that doesn't have to mean just a leader that has a big title, right? It could be just a person. That person that is a leader. But I love that you put the onus on them, because they're the ones that can really influence that. And Steve reminds us all the time. It's like, make connection the goal. Yes. And, if that is your goal as a leader, you'll, find ways then to connect.
That's right.
Tom, I want to talk a little bit about legacy, because this does to me tie into, like we talk about build love into scalable systems. And part of that is systemizing, love and compassion in ways. And it's a way to leave legacy. If you're not there, it's because you kind of left your mark in a way. So do you see your work as part of a larger legacy of leadership, not just what you build, but like how you build it?
Oh, most definitely. It's very limited if, as a leader, you can only see that the work that you're doing, the connectivity, when it's limiting if you can see that it only connects down through things that you can touch, for example, or when you are around and such. Where you really start, in my experience, where I really start to get that deep sense of satisfaction is when you see it happening when you're not around, and you didn't even know that it was happening. You see other leaders that are emulating it in their own way, in their own style, and they're building community and they're building connection. It's so important. And I'll tell you again, as a leader, keeping our own egos in check, essentially of the, hey, I might be chief fun officer here at the organization, essentially, which means I always want to be in the middle of every party, and such. But boy, you really know that you're getting it right when you've got other people that are leading it, and it's really permeating down into the organization, and such. And it's such a responsibility as a leader to be able to leave that type of a legacy. It's daunting.
It is. But, and you've got an opportunity to make such a big impact. And that's what I like about the franchise world, is that it's so systemized, and you're talking about things like connection and, the customer experience. How can we be the best at that? And so you're going to be auditing your business by how can we be the best at customer experience, right? So then this starts developing into systems of how exactly can we do that. And really these end up being sort of empathetic, compassionate systems in their role, right? One question I always ask is, what role does love and compassion play in business, do you think?
Well, love is a complicated word, right?
Mm-hmm.
And understanding actually and having studied what love means, is a super important aspect to even be able to answer that question. You can love somebody and love them deeply and not be liked. And sometimes demonstrating deep, true love for somebody else will have an outcome of that person may not really like you, coming through it. And certainly not until, time has passed and they understand that you did demonstrate love. But compassion as well, oftentimes is going to be confused with sympathy, essentially. And there's a difference there where sympathy in my frame of when I think of it is just demonstrating an emotion to someone where there's not necessarily going to be an outcome, that comes out of it other than just, sharing something that is, happening with that other person. Compassion, on the other hand, is to me, a more connected emotion that does actually lead to something else. Meaning, if I'm going to show compassion to somebody, or you're going to show compassion to me, you're going to demonstrate aligning. You may demonstrate empathy and or sympathy, but then you're also going to be connected to what happens afterwards, essentially. So to string those two words together, and I didn't know you were going to ask me this question, right? So this is a complicated one. To string deep, true love for someone and to demonstrate compassion, which means it ends, on something. The hard part of that is understanding you may not get the same thing in return. But what you are truly doing is selflessly helping somebody else through a situation, or through a period of time or something challenging, and that person truly benefits from it. Is it important? I think it's imperative.
Yeah, without a doubt. Love is definitely love is a verb for sure. Right? You display it in action.
Yeah, I like the end of that too. Is it important? I think it's imperative.
Yeah.
But and I think too, like I mentioned, for franchises, you've got 300 plus locations, and you're trying to build something connection with all of these in some way. So you've really got to be very methodical sometimes about how you build connection, but at the same time, I want to be authentic about it, right? This is because it's important to you.
Yeah.
Right. Is that a challenge at times, or you just go for it?
That's always a challenge, especially when you're in leadership and you get confused in your own head of what you're supposed to be accomplishing, of hitting goals and hitting results, and things like that, and pushing the pause button and just stopping and reminding yourself there's a person on the other end of this, and Stephen, the emotion I'm going through right now in that last question, there are times that I'm in a very difficult conversation with a franchise owner on something, and this is a normal, thing, where I have, and very recently, just stopped and said, that I love you, right? And to see the look on the other person's face, essentially, first of all, they recognized that they knew it, essentially, because like there's something that's inside of you that you can just feel. However, when you're in a business environment and there's a conflict or a challenging situation that you're working through, for somebody to remind you that you do in fact love them, and that you're demonstrating it by staying in this conversation and looking for the right resolution, it's almost disarming to the challenging parts of when I say challenging parts of the conversations, I mean the unhelpful emotional aspect of it, and allows it to get back immediately to a humanistic side and realize we're really aligned on trying to help something here.
Yeah, such a great answer. This is like one of those Jedi leadership things too, is where like you're pausing and you're, hey, again, connection is our goal here. You know that I love you, right? And this is why we're going through this, even though it's maybe uncomfortable at this time. It, like you said, it brings us back to what's kind of important as humans, right? In the middle of this conversation, and changes the dynamic completely of that difficult situation, and you guys kind of get through it much better. And I love that you brought up that example out. I think about it often. At times it's like the pause button and hey, let's do a step back check here for just a moment, just a brief pause. And like you said, it changes everything, right? In that conversation.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, coming from a place of love. So Tom, this has been a tremendous show and really, really rich. Thank you so much for sharing your story and the insights that you've brought today. For our listeners and as well as our followers who will take this in later on, and they want to learn more about your work and try to get connected with you, where would you like them to go?
Well, I would certainly suggest one of our two websites, our consumer-facing floorcoveringsinternational.com, or the one that describes the franchise opportunity more in depth, which is flooring-franchise.com. Those would be the two places to go to get started.
Awesome.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Tom. And thank you to our audience. Great questions. And thank you for tuning in. If today's episode sparked a new perspective on connection in business, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who would be inspired by Tom's story today. So until next time, we'll see you on the Bliss Business Podcast.